unique company. Kent, thank you for having us here today. We are excited to be speaking with you.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
I have heard a lot about you from my partner and co founder of American Snippets, Dave Brown. He has known you a long time, and you have directly impacted his success as an entrepreneur. And his whole attitude is just infectious. And it took me a long time. I was like, where did you get this from? And now I'm studying up on you a little. I'm like, oh, I see where he gets it from. So I guess I owe you a thank you too, because through helping him change his life, you're helping him help me change mine.
I appreciate the kind words. Always nice to hear. Thanks for stopping and pausing to say that.
No problem. So let's take it from the beginning. You were just 17 years old, I guess, when you were part of launching your first business. You
hmm
launched the sort of grocery wholesale business, correct?
Yeah, I don't know. Launch is probably a strong word. I kind of got pulled along.
Okay.
My father started the business, and by no choice of mine, I was basically told I was going to go into business. Um, but I fell in love with it quickly. I mean, I figured out really fast what I was passionate about, what I was good at, what I really enjoyed doing. My father had been molding me most of my life to be an entrepreneur, so suddenly when I was had the chance to work directly with him and sit in an office in Memphis, Tennessee, day after day, it was something I mean, I just kind of I went for it.
So your dad started that. Did he have capital to start that? Did he have to loan? Were you a part of that process? Did he teach you how he was starting that, or did he just
Yeah,
start it
yeah.
and
I mean, I
say,
was there. I was there day one, right at the front lines. He had a reputation. We had grown up. Or let me back up even further. My father had been in the grocery industry my entire life, right?
okay,
And so he had built a reputation for running stores, for owning his own stores. He had been a corporate executive, very very successful in Dallas, Texas, with a very large um, grocery retail operation as well as a wholesale operation. So he had spent most of his life already in the grocery industry. And when we had moved to Memphis, Tennessee, he was approached by a third party that was willing to basically fund the company, finance the company, if he would be the guy out in front and start a Memphis division. And that was really how it got started. His reputation preceded him, and it gave us the opportunity to access capital to actually go off and start the business.
okay. Were you in high school at the time? Had you
I
graduated?
was. I
You
was
were.
in high school, so going there every day after school, all the weekends, all that kind of good stuff. I mean, like I said, I was living and breathing it from the moment I could.
So that's actually kind of interesting. So were other kids, I mean, were your friends all out and about doing their thing and were you like, oh,
Yeah.
I gotta go work today? Or were you kind of all about it after a while?
Probably, I'm not going to sit there and tell you that I wasn't. I mean, I was a kid.
Yeah.
So was I certainly a little jealous of my friends that were out partying and having a good time and doing all that kind of good stuff? Of course, naturally. My all my friends were running off and going up to college, and I was staying there in Memphis and attempted to go to college for a semester and figured out real quick that it wasn't anywhere near as fascinating or as much fun as what I was doing by working. At that time in my life, I was really seduced by the money part of it, right? I mean, I was 18 years old when I bought my first house.
Wow.
I'm driving around in a very expensive car when I'm 18 years old, 19 years old, and all my friends are going off and doing their thing. But ironically, fast forward about 4 years later, and all my friends that went off to college and came back and tried to get a job couldn't find a job, and they all came to work for me. So I had no regrets.
So how do you like me now?
Exactly. Funny how you guys enjoyed life, and I sat here and built a business. So now,
Yeah.
I'll be your employer. It was what it was.
Awesome. So you were 30 years old when you decided to quit that business?
Yeah, I quit is probably, yeah, it's the right word.
Retired.
Basically, I, I got the company had turned into a really big organization. The company was out of Memphis, Tennessee. We were bought by a much larger competitor down in Boca Raton, Florida. They recruited me and my wife at the time to come down to Florida. Ultimately, I ended up running the entire organization. So this little thing that we started in Memphis, Tennessee. I was 20. I think I was 27, and suddenly I was running an $800 million a year company. And by the time I was 30, it was 1.8 billion.
Wow.
So it was not your average 27, 28, 29-year old, experience. Um, and I 100% believed that it was all because of me. I mean, you could not tell. All you had to do was ask me how great I was, and I was more than willing to tell you. And so I basically had gotten into a run-in with the owners of the company when I was 30 years old. Had a difference of opinion, and in about 30 seconds, just decided that I wasn't going to do this anymore. They were going to regret ever letting me walk out the door. And again, all of their success was because of me. Again, all you had to do was ask me. So I was bound and determined to go off and do my own thing and own the whole thing and start all over. And so
So
that was a journey that did not end well.
no, I saw that. You have quite the arc in your story, but it's actually it's very inspirational and it's helped you become who you are today. So that was obviously a big decision that changed the trajectory of your life. And at that point, it didn't go in the direction that you wanted it to go. Are you game to tell us a little bit about what happened
Sure,
after
sure.
that?
I mean, there were many, many years where I didn't talk about my failures because I was just so ashamed and so embarrassed. Now I find it as probably the single biggest strength that I've got, and I think there's a lot to be gained from it. Again, I had built a business all at the expense of a family, all at the expense of every friendship, everything. The business was my entire life. And a really valuable lesson that I learned was that when the only thing you're focused on is money and, pride and all that kind of good stuff, it's pretty shocking how fast that can all be gone. And I had no perspective on that. I literally did not realize that was even a possibility. And when I walked out, I spent roughly 2 years and millions of dollars um, proving how bad of a businessman I really was. It was just that simple. I basically went out and started a competitor, decided I was going to, go after my former employees or employers, all of his employees. I was going to try to hire everybody away. I was going to try to get all of his customers. I was going to do everything I could to build my business in spite of his and at the expense of his. And he just defended his business as I would expect anybody to do and wasn't going to go away quietly. And we ended up fighting, in the trenches on a business standpoint, on a legal standpoint. And this is a guy that had hundreds of millions of dollars. So his ability to play the game was very different than mine. And, fast forward 2 years later, I had lost everything. I mean, I actually should have filed bankruptcy. I mean, the bankruptcy laws are designed to protect the very situation that I found myself in, but I had too much pride to do that as well. So I just paid everything off personally to make sure everybody was made whole, and then ended up with about 4 grand in the bank after 2 years, and it was pretty humiliating.
After having all that money, you were down to $4,000. Where were you kind of emotionally at that point in your life? Were you, um,
I was suicidal.
yeah,
That's exactly where I was. I thought that that surely that it would be less painful to do that than to go through what I was going through. And it was really, really dark. It was really scary. It was not pleasant. I had a young son at the time, and thank God I did, because it's probably the single biggest reason why I just decided there had to be a better solution. I was very fortunate that my wife now, but my girlfriend at the time, gave me a helping hand and said, "Hey, why don't you move in with me and let's just kind of start over." She had actually worked for me at the grocery company, so she had seen me at my highest, and suddenly she was seeing me at my lowest. And it takes a really special individual to say, "Hey, I've seen you on top of the world, making millions of dollars and doing all this great stuff, but you know what? I'll step in and help you when you're at your absolute most destitute." And so I moved in with her, and quickly things started changing. I saw one of those late night infomercials of how to get involved in real estate. It's really challenging for me to talk too much about those commercials or say anything harsh about those commercials, because the reality of it is I would not be where I am today if it had not been for that. I saw one and just went to one of those events and made a decision to get involved, which was really scary because I didn't have any money.
yeah.
And that kind of started me down a path that was, begin the process of changing my life.
And you found pretty quick success in there, or a very quick um, return on your investment in faith and what was at
Yeah,
that time a quarter of
yeah,
your
I
net
mean,
worth that you invested?
right. Yeah, that's why, I mean, my big thing, right? The thing I tell people is the time is now, that you have to take action, and you've got to do things that really scare you. And you cannot be risk adverse. You have to go for it. And all of that comes from, this experience as well as others. But, if I look back and I say that if I'd given into my fear at that moment and said, I can't do this, yes, it's $1,000 to go buy this course, and here I only have 4 grand in the bank, and that I had basically every other investment I'd made for the last 2 years I'd lost on, and so here I was, very, very leery, and certainly not in a really good place mentally, but I did it anyway. And when I was very quick. Well, let me put it this way: I was highly motivated, which is a key factor here. I was tired of being broke. The system that I bought was as basic as you could get. It was, once I understood the mechanics of it, it was very straightforward. And so it was just a matter of applying it, and just being a matter of getting out of my own head and being just motivated enough to say, what have I got to lose? So that's when you get into that place and you're willing to take actions. To your point, the return came very quickly. I mean, I did my first deal in less than a month, made $8,000 on it, and the rest, I started quickly down a path. I did 91 wholesale transactions in my first 18 months, made over $1 million. So all the experience leading up to that, it taught me how to be how to be an entrepreneur, what it took. Losing it all taught me how to get back on top and do it the right way. And so, once you kind of, that all the perfect mixture was in place, just enough motivation, just enough humility, and just enough inspiration, it was pretty shocking what you could do.
Can you tell us a little bit about those 21 days? It's a lot of people will start something and get frustrated very quickly when they don't get that return. I know this. I can be one of those people sometimes. Sorry, Dave. Uh, but, it can be very discouraging. And a lot of times people will allow that discouragement to be their excuse to quit and to just give up. So 21 days is faster than most people will find a return on something that they have started. People will write a book and think it's going to be a bestseller instantly, or they're going to open a bakery and think that they're going to make $1 million in the first month, right? So, can you tell us what happened in those 21 days? What did you do? Were you working 24/7? Did you just invest every moment or every breath into that business? Like, what
Yeah,
allowed you in that
absolutely. That's
21
exactly
days?
what happened. I mean, at the end of the day, success was not promised, and success is never promised. uh, but neither is failure. And I think that having gone through a lot of years of building a business, having been raised by a father that was highly entrepreneurial, right? I had I had zero appreciation for it. Even at this time, I had zero appreciation for the way I had been brought up. Now that I've gotten much older, I absolutely appreciate what he did for me. But having that just ingrained in me, that good isn't good when great is expected, that nothing is promised to you, the world owes you nothing, that you are absolutely a product of the effort that you put into it. Go out there and act like it matters. That kind of thinking, it's very difficult to beat somebody when they have that kind of thinking. And that just came very naturally to me because of the way I was brought up. But to your point, that doesn't come naturally to most people. That takes a lot of discipline. That takes a lot of absolute, self-reflection, understanding that the most powerful tool you've got is in between your ears, and it can win the game or it can lose the game before you ever do anything. Right? It will ultimately determine the amount of effort you'll put into it. So, I just, again, at that particular moment, it was not a matter of whether or not I was going to do a deal. That was never a question. It might have been a question of how quickly I was going to do it, but I was going to get the deal done. I was going to die trying. It was going one or the other. And again, when you have that kind of inevitability, when success is a foregone conclusion, then you can't lose. People, I think, have a tendency to create false timelines. It sounds. I mean, if I today went off and said, I want to train. Well, I'll give you a great example of this. Perfect example of this is my younger brother is training to run a 100-mile ultra marathon. Right, he's going to run it in roughly a month from now. And when you hear somebody that's going to train to run 100 miles and they've never run a marathon ever, It sounds insane, right? But if it would sound even more insane if during his training, if he went off and basically said, well, if I can't run a marathon by the third week of training, then you know what? This is just a big scam. These guys don't know what they're talking about. If he doesn't listen to his coaches, if he doesn't listen to trainings, he doesn't listen, if he came in with this false understanding of what was possible or what the regiment needed to be. And he basically said, listen, if you guys can't get me to a place where I can run a marathon in 21 days, then I don't believe anything you say. It would sound utterly insane if he said that. But yet people do it all the time with business, all the time with anything. They go off and bring these preconceived notions of what success looks like and the timetable that they've conceived without any real understanding of what should or could or shouldn't happen. And so I think it's really dangerous to go into stuff like that. I think you basically have to say, I'm going to go as long as it takes, period, because it's my dream.
And then in those first months, in that first year and a half after you then started your own business, you did, was it 91 wholesale deals in 18 months? Did,
Right.
how did you do that? Did you have a staff? Were you doing it all on your own? Did you have a
No,
partner? Did
it
you,
was all me. It
you
was
did
all
that
me.
all on your own,
Yeah, I hustled.
using what you had
Um,
learned?
yeah, I hustled. That's all I did. I was so addicted to the money. And I had come, you see, we've all probably heard this, but it's really interesting when you hear that once a mind is expanded, it can't contract. So I knew what success felt like. I knew I mean, I had grown up in it. I had lived it for almost 13 years. I knew exactly what it felt like to live on the Intracoastal in Boca Raton, Florida. I knew exactly what it felt like to drive the fancy cars and have the nice watches and to go to the nice dinners and travel around. I knew exactly what all that felt like. And so my mind was expanded. And so suddenly, when you don't have any of that stuff, and then you have an opportunity clearly to make money and a path to having that back, that was my path. So it was like, I don't care. I'll work. Now that I know that I can actually do this, and I don't need any other people, and I don't need my grocery background, and I don't need all my grocery contacts. I mean, which was great because I burned all those. I burned every one of those relationships to the ground. Suddenly, I could do this without anybody. It was just a product of my effort, my marketing, my abilities, my willingness to hustle. I could make a lot of money, and so I knew I wanted to make it. So I just kept moving.
And so your personal life then had rebounded as well. Were you remarried at the time?
I had just remarried
Yeah.
and started down a. I mean, we were living an amazing life. Basically, we had bounced back. Everything that we had wanted was suddenly coming true again. Um, we were in the run up right before the recession, so we're in South Florida, so money was basically free. So going off and acquiring properties and building business. I mean, everything was going good. Yeah, absolutely.
Good. And that means a lot too because she had built that with you. So you were strong in business, you had a very solid marriage and family life. So everything was just all of your hard work, all the angst you'd been through, it was finally sort of
Yeah,
behind you and things were looking good. And then one day you got on a plane and you had this experience that I think it sounds like it sort of changed things even more for you, where you had an even greater wake up call and awakening. Can you tell us about that?
sure, sure. Well, I would even go back one step further than that. The first real wake up call to me was when we were about to have my daughter, my first daughter, and I suddenly realized that I owned a job, right, which was very humbling for me. That if I stopped, the money stopped, and it was a real epiphany for me that I owned a job. I didn't own a business, and so I really got serious about putting systems and processes and things in place like that to try to begin backing myself out of it. So where I had the option to work, but I didn't have to work. So that was pretty eye opening for me. The second thing was that as you said, I had an experience on an airplane, which is maybe many people have had this, but for me, it was very, very eye opening. Where I was on a plane flying from an event that I had just put on in Memphis, Tennessee. My wife and now I guess this is 5 years later. So my wife and my 5-year-old daughter at this point are on the plane with me, and at this point, we've got a very successful business in multiple ways, right? We have an investing business, we have an education business, we have a software business. Things are really, really going well all the way around. We had come out on the other side of the recession. Things were going, again, we felt like we'd had a lot of stuff figured out. And we're on the plane. My daughter and my wife were actually sitting a few rows behind me because they had booked their itineraries at a different time than I had. They were actually coming to meet me at the event, right? Kind of surprise me. And
Oh,
so, long story short, we're coming home, and as we're on the plane, they're sitting a few rows back from me, and suddenly the plane fills with smoke. And not something you ever want to happen, I can assure you, right? So when the plane fills with smoke, uh, to make matters much worse, the crew basically freaks out, and it just goes into sheer panic mode. The plane goes into a dive. People are screaming. People are crying. And in a very, very, very real way, I'm facing my mortality. It was absolutely no question the most humbling experience I'd ever been through in my life, right? When suddenly you are in zero control and you understand you're about to be a statistic. And unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, in all of the mayhem and all the chaos and all the nonsense that's going on and people screaming and the buzzers going off and the stewardesses just trying to bring calm. I can really only hear my little 5-year-old that is again 5 rows behind me crying and screaming for daddy, and I can't do anything to get to her. Again, because we are diving, and they don't tell you when you get on an airplane that if the plane is on fire, that what they're going to do is send it into a nosedive because they feel like it's might be on fire. That's not part of the little itinerary that they walk you through, right? You learn
right.
that. I've learned that since
Yeah.
that was actually standard operating procedure, but I didn't know that then, and so it was a very panicked, crazy, crazy, crazy situation. We ended up making an emergency landing. We were going from Atlanta to West Palm Beach. We ended up making an emergency landing um, into Tampa, Florida, and getting off that plane as fast as we could. Man, thank God we landed and everything worked out. Obviously, or we wouldn't be talking here. But it was so real for me that I actually filmed a video on my phone to my son, telling him goodbye, and that I carry around with me to this day. And you can see the panic that's on my face. You can see whenever I play that video, you can see the smoke in the cabin. I mean, it's you can hear the buzzers. I mean, it's not a pleasant experience. But what it did for me is it brought an amazing amount of clarity, right? Um, Losing that business really over the years helped me to realize what was important. The second thing is, again, realizing that I owned a job and not a business was really important because it made me focus on things. This was a kind of the last straw, if you will, that I'm not in the business of business anymore. I'm in the business of collecting moments, creating amazing memories for my children, leaving a legacy, making an impact, doing whatever I've got to do. My business serves me, allows me to do that, helps me to do that, but I'm not in this for building the business anymore.
So that authenticity, I think, is something that you can only really possess if you're actually authentic. A lot of people try to portray themselves as authentic, but it's evident when you watch that video on your website, when you hear you talk. It's clear that you're speaking from someplace very deep. That you mean it, and that is something that I know. I mean, through personal experience and through other people like you I've spoken to, when you have that moment, when that is something that never leaves you. And
Oh yeah,
some people take that and it it does something to them that they never recover from. It takes them down, and other people take that and use that as a momentum to push them forward. And you clearly are somebody who used that as momentum to push you forward. And it's captivating almost. It's inspiring when you hear you talk, you see the energy. So you take those lessons that you learned in that moment in particular, and you took that new philosophy and you applied it to your business into real estate worldwide to sort of help other people maximize every moment in their life too, right? So you've helped them create a life for themselves where they can provide for themselves and their family without being slave to that time clock or
right.
to a life that just makes them miserable. Can you share with us a little bit how about some of those principles, those core concepts about time being so valuable, how you've parlayed that into your business and how it's helping people across the country change their lives through it.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my business, right, there are plenty of people out there, um, thousands, if not tens of thousands of people that are qualified to teach people how to go buy and sell properties, right? How to flip properties and make a little bit of money, and how to do the transaction, how to make things happen, right? So um, we are no different than anybody else, right? But our philosophy is exceptionally different in that we believe that if you are doing that and you're backing yourself into a job and your purpose is to go from transaction to transaction to transaction, go somewhere else. I have no desire to teach anybody how to do that. What I'm very passionate about is helping people understand that the clock's ticking, baby. I mean, it's happening right now. And whether you like it or not, it is ticking on you. And you need to get in a hurry as fast as you possibly can to wringing everything out of life that you can. So don't make the mistake of building a business that backs you into a corner. Don't make the mistake of putting yourself in a situation unknowingly to where you don't have you no longer have control. You are caught in that same trap over. I feel like I was put in these situations um, to learn those lessons. So and then I was given a platform or help create a platform is probably a better way to say it, that I I can scream from the rooftops and I can get a lot of attention. I can get, hundreds of thousands of people to pay attention and say, you don't have to do this way. It doesn't have to be this way. You absolutely not only have the ability to go off and create an amazing income for yourself, but you absolutely have the ability to do it in a logical, methodical way, using systems, using processes, using people to do these things for you, creating a culture around you to where people are inspired and lift you up and push you to where now the business you've built gives you options, not the other way around. And so if you want to go on that amazing trip, if you want to go, on that amazing family vacation, if you want to, whatever you want to do, it's there. And I believe that people should be living their life to create those things, not the other way around, trying to fit them in. And so, I absolutely could be wrong, but I'm extremely passionate about it, right? I mean, every day we live the same the motto over and over again. The time is now. Do not waste this chance. I've seen too many times where people believe that time is on their side. And in the blink of an eye, it's changed. I mean, that airplane ride, in the blink of an eye, my entire life was changed. It could have easily gone the other direction. And I could have, had the moments to reflect and be filled with regret. And I just refused to do that. And I don't think anybody should have to do that. So,
No. So one thing that I saw on your website, I think it was, it's a little different philosophy than most people. Generally, people don't like to get fired, but you are a fan of firing yourself. So, you want to fire yourself from the jobs that you don't necessarily care to take your time to do. You want to find another way to get that work done so that you can focus your energy and your time on pursuits that are more meaningful to you, right? So, um, is this a so you've developed those systems around that premise where people don't have to spend their time doing those things. They can learn those systems that will do that work for them and allow them to free up their time to focus on other pursuits. Does that sound
100%.
right?
Yeah. So basically, our I had a mentor. I can't claim this. So I had a mentor share this with me a long time ago, and I've just never forgot it. And I've lived my life by it, where he has told me that if you want to be successful, then your job is to fire yourself as often as you can. And what he meant by that is that you can never have freedom as long as the entire business has to run through you. And I've come to appreciate that. You do it wrong enough, long enough, you'll figure it out. So I did it wrong for a lot of years, and I don't do it wrong anymore. I run a business where it largely can run, if I choose, without me. Now, I'm extremely passionate about the business, and I'm extremely passionate about working with our clients and our students, and going off and creating impact out there. And so, this is what I choose to do with my time. I can't imagine doing anything else with my time that outside of this. But it's different when you get to choose to do that. Again, get to live your passion versus having to do something. If I don't do this, I don't get paid. And so that requires starting with the end in mind. That just requires discipline. That requires fully appreciating processes, fully appreciating automation and systems and the power of people and leverage. I mean, there's the mechanics of running a successful business are fairly basic. I mean, there's a lot of elegance in making it simple. But there's also a lot of money to be made in making it seem really, really tough. And so I think there are a lot of people out there who get sucked into this trap of believing success is very challenging, that it's this, oh my God, I've got to go build a business, and suddenly I'm going to have employees, and then the government's going to want tax. I mean, they get all of this stuff going on rather than just focusing on putting one foot in front of the other and focusing on what do you really want out of life? What would you really do with your day if you could? What if you didn't have to show up for work? What would you do? Now, how do you go and create that? And when you start breaking it down for people and showing them just how simple it is through these processes, it's pretty cool. A lot of light bulbs go off.
Do you get to hear back from your students on how things have changed for them since they've started incorporating the techniques and systems that they learned through Real Estate Worldwide?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, we get it. We get it every day. We have testimonials that roll in every single day. Um, and it's always, not to mention the least of which, the best testimonials, I'll be candid, is when from time to time we'll do a live event and we'll get a lot of our clients or students, and their guests into a room, whether that's in San Diego or Phoenix or wherever, right? And so when we do that and you have people run up to you literally in tears, people that I've never met, I've never even had a conversation with, quite frankly, but they run up to you in tears. And because of social media, because of all the video trainings, because of everything that's going on, they truly feel like they know me. And so it's a very weird connection that you have, but at the same time, when it's right in front of you, it's also very, very real. And when somebody walks up to you, like this happened to me not too long ago, I had a young lady walk up to me with her daughter, telling me how she was living out of her car a year ago. And now here she is in North Carolina running a business that she'll make in excess of $300,000 this year. I mean, 180-degree change, and brings up her daughter. And I mean, just talk about it, choking me up. I mean, crying in front of me, hugging my neck, and her daughter's. I mean, I don't know these people, but there's certainly a connection there, and they certainly feel like they know me, and they followed what we've told them to do, step by step by step, and they've done it, and they've been on our trainings, and they've been on our videos, and they've engaged with us, and it's a pretty magical thing, and I can tell you that's the entire reason we do it, right there.
Do your kids get to see that their dad does this and does it? I mean, I would imagine it would feel pretty awesome to show this to your kids and to teach by example, kind of. Um, do you think it's changing them to see them,
What?
or
Yeah, I
help,
mean,
or
my
impacting
my
them? I
my
would say.
mind, in my right mind, do I believe that my kids are probably very different than most of their friends, and realize that we do something very different than anybody else they know? Yeah, but to them, I'm still dad, right? I mean, to my little girls, to my 3-year-old, I'm the greatest guy in the world, and to my 11-year-old, I'm quickly becoming the dad that she doesn't want to be around, right? So it's so I'm just a normal dad, but they do get to come to the events, and they do, and my son gets to come to the events, and they get to see it, and they get to hear it, and so I've never actually paused and said, hey, do you guys think dad's cool because of what's going on? It's never been like that, but I can tell you that my son is now 24, and he works inside of our Memphis Invest operation in Memphis, Tennessee, and I think he finally gets just how special all this really is, and the kind of ripple effect that it has. And I hear nothing but great things on a daily basis from everybody in Memphis about him and the job he does and how good he is at it, and how respectful he is. And so I think he is truly appreciative and sees that this has the ability to really have an impact.
So another very important part of what you do and what you believe in is giving back. Yes, you've started. Can you tell us a little bit about your the Time Is Now project?
Yeah, the Time Is Now project is a charity that we run that is back up a few years ago, I had the opportunity of a mentor take me to Haiti, and I had never done anything like that. And he basically, I wasn't asked to go. I was told I was going, quite frankly, and was like, "Listen, you need to go do this. We're making this happen." So he and I and several others went down to Haiti, and I got to see firsthand what real desperation looks like, what real poverty looks like, what I mean, it was a shocking experience, and I would highly encourage anybody that ever needs a reality check to get on a plane and go to Haiti. Go with one of the missionary groups. Go with your church. Go whatever, because it is a humbling experience. And so for me, watching an 8-year-old little girl walk up to me and beg for water was a shock to my system that I won't soon forget, because at the time my daughter was 8 as well. And coming home and watching my daughter just go to the refrigerator and get a bottle of water and whatever else she wanted, right? It's just crazy the stuff we take for granted. And so that had a real impact on me and my business partners. The big challenge is that, unfortunately, we also learned that a lot of the missionary groups and the charities that are responsible for helping are just not run like businesses. Quite frankly, they are really poorly run, and the money doesn't necessarily make it where it's supposed to. And not that there's anything fraudulent or going on. It's just ignorance, quite frankly. And so we decided to start the Time Is Now project, and our entire efforts is focusing on children's charities, on providing resources as well as money to children's charities that we find worthwhile or that are run the right way, and up to including, I mean, we have our own little project that we like to support year round called 1,000 Layaways that we started, where we go off and pay off layaways in our local community for families that are in need. Again, really focusing on children, because just the innocence of it all is just a really big deal to me. I mean, I just can't. I mean, this just the when you witness stuff like that, and you see kids that are just put in such unfortunate situations but they didn't do anything, and their parents are working as hard as they can and doing everything they can to get it taken care of, and they're having to choose between food or presents or whatever, and they're going and putting something as small as $100 gift for Christmas on layaway, and at the last minute still haven't figured out how to get it paid off. To step in there and pay that off and let the parent be the hero. Let Santa Claus still exist, right? We do it all anonymously. We don't, we've had some people track us down over the years, but typically we do it all anonymously, and they don't ever know who or how it happened. I just think is a really, really cool, impactful way to make a difference in the community. And what's really cool is, especially in the last year, it's really caught on. I mean, we had many of our students and people all over the country kind of take our lead or follow our lead and go and do the exact same thing. And our hashtag 1,000 layaways was definitely ranking there for a long time, as thousands and thousands of families across the country were doing the exact same thing. So a lot of cool stuff going on like that.
So, Dave has been doing that for a couple of years, and he got me into that this past year, I will tell you. So we went to a Toys R Us and paid off a layaway, and it was pretty fun. And so I came home and I posted. I said, "Hey guys, we did this layaway thing," and I did the hashtag 1,000 layaways, and I told everybody about it. And somebody on my site saw it and put it on someone else's, and very quickly in the community the dots were connected, and somebody came forward and said, "Oh my gosh, that was me!" And so within hours, the person whose layaway we had paid off figured out that it was me. I'd never met her. I still haven't met her. I didn't want to. So on the site, I didn't like have my name put out there, but I allowed the person to connect us, private message, and she sent me a message which was just amazing and so sweet, and nothing I'd intended. I posted it to try to get other people to do the same.
Right.
And
Right.
one person said, "Oh, this is great. Now I'm going to go pay off somebody else's layaway too." So that was actually a pretty special thing. And I'm absolutely doing it again this year. And hopefully we can get some more support for that as well. But I can tell you, as my life has flipped a little bit. So this year or last year, I'm paying off a layaway. Years ago, through a lot of crashes of my own, I had been in a position where I was struggling to put Christmas together for my own children. And I had somebody come forward and help me just bridge that gap until I had all this stuff lined up, but it wasn't coming through for a couple of months, and they helped me bridge that gap, and I was able to give my children Christmas that year. So I know firsthand what it's like to be that sort of desperate and embarrassed and
Yeah.
and upset and fearful, and then have somebody come through and help you bridge that gap. And now getting to see your end doing the 1,000 layaways, you gave me an opportunity. I mean, I could have done it on myself, but I probably never would have thought of it. It's such a simple concept, really, with a huge impact. So I never would have thought of it. So getting to participate in that on my own and see the results firsthand, I'm like, oh, I see now, like, why this is so awesome. So I'm already
Yes.
excited for Christmas next year and can't
It's
wait to see.
crazy, right? I mean, you just can't even,
Yeah,
you wouldn't think that something like that could be that impactful.
right.
But to, kind of exactly what you were saying, we had somebody that tracked us down this year. It's the first time it's ever happened. And suddenly we had news crews calling us, and the news was at her house and everything. I mean, it was, we were doing everything in our power to stay behind the scenes, and the
Right.
news teams were doing everything they could to
To
out
unearth
us.
you. Yep.
Um, but it was really, really, uh, it was interesting to see it. It was the first time that we had actually seen it live, right? Where somebody was really struggling, didn't know how it was going to happen, and our efforts helped create a situation on their end where, and to hear her kids talk about, Santa helped to do that. I mean, it was just a really, really cool situation, and like you said, it just takes a little bit of effort. I mean, and what I don't think most people realize is that, well, we were paying off layaways that were $12 left, right?
Well,
I mean, we were very fortunate this year. We raised enough money to go in and pay off every layaway in the store that we went into all at one time, roughly $10,000. But there were layaways in there that were $12. I mean, the
wow.
difference between having Christmas and not having Christmas was going
Was
to be
$12.
$12.
Yeah.
And that's just that. I mean, it's just so simple to create such massive impact and create and give people hope. Give them a little bit of, give them a little bit of faith, because I can tell you, as an entrepreneur and as a man, as a father, as a brother, that without hope, without a little bit of faith, then all the rest of this is kind of immaterial.
Right.
You asked at the very beginning, what does it take to for those 21 days? That's it. You just have to have that faith. You gotta have that hope. You gotta know. So when that's gone, it's all gone.
It's all gone. So one more on the 1,000 layaway, just so we can get the message across. Really, if people are thinking that, like you just said, maybe people are thinking I couldn't do this because it would be hundreds of dollars and I can't afford this. No, you can, something as little as $10 or $12 can make the difference. And even if people wanted to go together and everybody throw in $10 and pay off somebody's layaway, right? That's possible too.
Oh yeah, 100%. And you don't have to wait till Christmas, by the way.
Yeah.
Um, there's some kid at Toys R Us that the difference between them having a birthday and not having a birthday is sitting on the shelf over there, and there's a small balance on a layaway keeping that from happening. There's a struggling mom or a struggling dad that's trying to do the best they can, and a helping hand goes a long way. And that you can absolutely do it, and you can absolutely do it at any time. And all you have to do is walk in there and go to the service counter and just simply say, "I would like to information on paying off a layaway."
See,
And
another thought
they're
I
gonna
hadn't even
look
thought
at
of.
you like you're crazy. Number one,
Yeah.
um, but if you talk to the manager and tell them what you're trying to do, I'm trying to pay off a layaway anonymously for somebody else. I don't want them to know who I am. I just want to do a nice thing for somebody. That will get you what you want.
So, two last questions for you before we wrap this up here. One, I'm going to ask just a question for your first instinct response. Okay, what's the biggest lesson you may have learned in business and in life?
Fail often, fail forward.
Nice. And last, if you could reach back to that 30-year-old self who walked out of that business and thinking this one mindset that turned out to be not not what you needed. But if you could reach back to that 30-year-old self, what would you tell him? Would you change it? Would you do it differently?
I would not change anything. I can tell you that. And I would also say that I would not, I have always felt that way. When I went through that process, it was the worst 2 years of my entire life. Now I look back at it and understand with a lot of perspective that it was the best thing that ever happened to me. The humility of losing everything, um, and the ability to get it all back were very, very powerful lessons. I think most people when they're out there trying to build a business, they're so afraid of failing and doing something wrong that they don't actually do anything, right? They're paralyzed. And the reality of it is that if you will get into business or do whatever, go fight for your dream, whatever it is, and be willing to fail, there's so many valuable lessons to learn through that. You're never going to fail if you're willing to lose it all, fighting for a dream. You're just not going to fail. You're just going to figure out a different way of doing it.
So if people want to find out more about you, real estate worldwide, where can they go?
They can hook up with me on KentClothier.com or go find me on Facebook. Just look up Kent Clothier or go to reww.com. 3 easy places.
Great. Thank you so much for being with us today. It was a big pleasure to speak with you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much.